April 2026 SC Lowcountry Market Update for Hilton Head, Bluffton, and Hardeeville. Sales are up, prices are up, but homes are taking almost twice as long to sell. I'm Kratz with Century 21 Integral Realty, and let's go ahead and get into the numbers. Across the entire Hilton Head Association of Realtors, closed sales increased by 12.6%. Pending sales also increased by 12.6%. And the median price increased by 4.6%. So if you looked at just those numbers, you'd think the market was doing great, right? But that's not the whole story. The days on market increased almost 90%. That means homes are still selling, but buyers are taking their time. And when buyers take their time, the market changes. Sellers have to be sharper on price, condition, preparation, and negotiations. Buyers have more room to compare, ask questions, and avoid making rushed decisions. So no, the market's not crashing. But it's also not the easier seller's market we had just a few years ago. This is a selective market. Some homes will still have strong demand, while others will sit. The difference usually comes down to price, condition, location, ownership cost, and of course competition. To put it another way, the market's not broken, it's just not handing out participation trophies anymore. So who has the leverage right now and where? Let's start with the big picture. New listings are basically flat, up 0.8%. Closings, as I said before, are up 12.6%. That tells us buyers are still active. When people say nothing's selling, that's not what the data says. Homes are selling. Buyers are writing contracts. Prices are not collapsing, but buyers aren't acting like they have to make a decision in 5 minutes. The days on market went from 69 to 131. Now, if you're looking at year to date, they're up to 137. That again is telling us that buyers have slowed down. They're comparing options. They're looking at conditions. They're asking about insurance, HOA fees, flood insurance, taxes, transfer fees, and repairs. In other words, they're doing their homework again. Nobody likes to do homework, but in real estate, you can save a lot more money doing that than you ever did in school. In the South Carolina Lowcountry, the purchase price is not the only part of the decision. The real question is, what does it cost to own the property? That's where buyers either make a smart decision or an expensive one. Bluffton's new listings actually went down just a hair under 5%, but closed sales were up 14.7%. The median price did drop 1.8%, so Bluffton's not falling apart. Sales were up, and prices were only down slightly. But here's the numbers that sellers need to respect. Days on market from 67 to 139. That's up almost 108%. That's a pretty big shift. For Bluffton sellers, lower inventory does not automatically mean you can overprice your home and wait for a parade of buyers to show up with balloons and a blank check. And to be frank, if someone does that, I think you need to ask a few more questions. Buyers have choices, especially when they're comparing a resale to a new construction home. A resale is not just competing with the home down the street. It may be competing one with builder incentives, fresh finishes, warranties, builder incentives, and sometimes help with interest rates and closing costs. For buyers, Bluffton may offer opportunities, but you need to be careful. A home can look ideal online, but once you add the HOA fees, transfer fees, insurance, taxes, repairs, location, the best deal isn't always the lowest price. This is where out-of-town buyers can get tripped up and surprised. Comparing list prices before you understand the real cost of ownership is a problem. And in Bluffton, that can get expensive fast. Now moving on to Hilton Head single family homes. New listings actually dropped 13.5%, but closings jumped up 10.4%. The median price dropped down to 1.2, which is a 2% reduction. And inventory dropped 18.7%. That inventory number matters. Hilton Head single family homes have limited supply in many parts of the market. So if you're a buyer waiting for every seller to panic, you may be waiting a while. This is Hilton Head. Sellers usually don't panic. They'll say, well, we'll just keep it and go play golf. But sellers should not get too comfortable either. Days on market have increased 37.4%. That means Hilton Head single family homes are relatively strong, but it's not automatic. The best homes, the best locations, priced correctly, are still getting the attention. So if you price too ambitious or the condition does not support your asking price, buyers are willing to wait. For sellers, the first few weeks really matter. You do not want to test the market with a wishful price and then spend the next 3 months slowly admitting that the market was right. The market doesn't care what you need. It cares what buyers are willing to pay. And I guess what you're willing to accept. It's the harsh truth. For buyers, this means you need to separate overpriced listings from scarce opportunities. Not every home that sits is a bargain. Not every home that sells quickly is overpriced. On Hilton Head, location, rental potential, flood zone, insurance, property condition, community restrictions can make two homes with the very same price can behave very differently. So now let's go ahead and talk about condos on Hilton Head. This segment's interesting. New listings were down 7.6%. Closed sales were up 9.5%. The median price was up 6.3%. On the surface, that looks strong. Fewer listings, more closed sales, higher median price. But here's the caution flag. Yep, days on market. Up almost 110%. That tells me that buyers are still buying condos, but they're doing more homework, and they need to. With condos, buyers aren't just looking at kitchen counters and seeing how close to the beach. They're looking at regime fees, insurance, building condition, rental history, rental restrictions, special assessment, parking, elevators, amenities, whether the property works for a second home, a rental, or a full-time residence. This is where purchase price can fool people. A villa can look affordable when comparing a single-family home, but if the monthly costs are high or the building has upcoming expenses, the real numbers could look very different. That cute beach villa can go from a great little getaway to why does it feel like I bought a small hotel? For sellers, details matter. If your villa has strong rental numbers, good updates, a great location, or a well-managed regime or building, those things need to be clear. If there are issues, do not hide from them. Buyers are asking more questions now. And if they're not asking, their agent should be. Now let's go to Hardeeville. New listings jumped almost 70%. Inventory is up almost 22%. That's a big shift in supply. At the same time, closings dropped 12.5%, and the price increase is only up 2.5%. But once again, days on market tell the story. Up almost 129%. That's a meaningful change. Hardeeville is still attractive for many buyers, especially those looking for a newer home, more space, relatively affordable compared to Hilton Head or or most areas of Bluffton, inventory rises and closings fall, buyers usually gain more room to negotiate. For sellers in Hardeeville, pricing against your active competition is critical. You cannot ignore new construction, you cannot ignore building incentives, and you cannot ignore days on the market. You cannot assume a buyer is going to choose your resale if a builder is offering a brand new home, a warranty, incentives that look like someone with a calculator had too much coffee. For buyers, Hardeeville may offer some better leverage right now. But that doesn't mean every home's a deal. You still need to compare taxes, HOA fees, commute patterns, if you're still working, community amenities, construction quality, future development, and resale appeal. Hardeeville can make a lot of sense for the right buyer, but it has to fit how you actually plan to live. A good deal in the wrong location is still the wrong deal. The biggest takeaway from April, this isn't one market. Bluffton is different from Hilton Head. Single family homes are different than condos. Hardeeville is different than both. New construction and resale are behaving differently. And even inside the same neighborhood, two homes can perform very differently depending on price, condition, location, ownership, cost, and competition. The broader supply report backs that up. For the 12-month period starting May 2025 to April 2026, pending sales across the entire Hilton Head Association were up 10.1% overall, with pending sales up 11.7%. Condos were up 7%. The strongest pending sales by price range were 250 to 350, up almost 35%. That tells us affordability still matters. Buyers are not just shopping based on what they want. They're shopping based on what the full monthly cost looks like. And that's why the total cost matters so much in the South Carolina Lowcountry. A buyer may qualify for the purchase price, but once you add insurance, HOA, regime fees, property taxes, transfer fees, maintenance, possible club costs, the decision can change quickly. That's why can I afford this house is not the right question. It's can I afford to own this house? Those are not always the same thing. Buyer versus seller. Who has the advantage right now? It depends on the segment. I know it sounds like a realtor answer, but in this case it's actually the truth. If you're a seller with a well-maintained home and is in a desirable location, priced correctly, and competing against relatively low inventory, you may still have the leverage. That's especially true in parts of Hilton Head for single-family homes where the inventory is down. But if your home is overpriced, needs updating, has high ownership costs, or is competing against new construction incentives, buyers may have more leverage than you really think. For buyers, this is not the market where you should assume everything is a bargain. Sales are up, prices are holding in many places, but it's also not a market where I would panic, buy just because you're afraid you'll never get another opportunity. The better strategy is to understand where the leverage is. Sometimes it's the price, sometimes it's the repairs, sometimes it's closing cost, sometimes it's timing, and sometimes the best move is simply not to rush into the wrong property. That's not losing, that's protecting yourself. So here's the bottom line for April 2026. The Lowcountry market is still moving. Sales are up, prices are holding in many areas, but homes are taking much longer to sell and buyers are being much more selective. That creates opportunity, but only if you understand the specific segments of the market you are dealing with. If you're thinking about buying or selling in Hilton Head, Bluffton, Hardeeville, Beaufort, or anywhere in the South Carolina Lowcountry, I'd be happy to help you look past the headline numbers and understand what they actually mean to you. I'm Carl Kratz, broker and realtor with Century 21 Integra Realty. I help people make confident real estate decisions here in the South Carolina Lowcountry. I hope this was helpful, and I'm looking forward to talking to you. Take care.